Hi everybody, this is Mr. Han. Here are our notes on how to graph a line and parabola. Alright, so we're really going to be learning how to find out what points we need when we're given a line or an equation. So right here, I'm just going to read this right here. Make a graph of the equations. Be sure to make your graph look nice and label everything that needs to be labeled. So I'm going to be telling you the things that I'm going to be looking for when I ask you to graph, okay? And also, we want it to look nice. So, how can we do that? First thing we need to do is look at the equation. Our equation here is y equals negative 2x minus 7. Now, with the silent board game, this is the rule that we would have. And so our job is to fill out this table using that rule. So y is going to equal negative 2 times whatever our x value is, right? These are all of our x values. So negative 2 times negative 4, and then we're going to subtract 7. So right here, what I'm going to ask you to do is every time, at least in the beginning, sorry about that, is to we're going to show our work. So I'll go ahead and write down my rule. Y equals negative 2x minus 7. And what I'm going to do is for each, and I'm going to highlight it yellow. I know yellow doesn't come out super clear, but for each one of these, okay, I'm going to use a color. And instead of x, I'm going to plug in negative 4 right here. So y equals, and before I do that, I'm going to label it negative 4. Okay, so y equals negative 2 times negative 4 minus 7. Okay, and so my job is to figure out what does y equal when x is negative 4. Y equals negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8 minus 7. Y equals 8 minus 7 is 1. So my number here is going to be 1. Alright, and I'm going to use this rule every time. So that's why this is key. Let's go ahead and use a different color. Oops. Y. Oh, I was on the right track. Come on. Alright. So going back, I'm going to put negative 3. Y equals negative 2 times negative 3 minus 7. So here y equals negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6 minus 7. Y equals negative 1. So I'll go ahead and put negative 1. When x is negative 3, right? I'm just saying this is the number I'm plugging in right now. So when x is negative 3, my y value is negative 1. We'll keep going on. Let's go ahead and use red. Negative 2. Y equals negative 2, right? Remember our rule here. I'm just going to move this over. Technically, I can make it bigger, just so you know that's the one we're using. Y equals negative 2 times negative 2 minus 7. So where did I get this red negative 2? I mean, I can be a little bit more clear. Where am I getting these numbers? Right here. Okay. So I'm going to use that same process, and instead of x, put in negative 2, and then negative 1, 0, and so on and so forth. Okay? So let's keep going. We're back to negative 2. What does y equal when x is negative 2? Y equals negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 minus 7. Y equals negative 3. So here's negative 3. Negative 1. Y equals negative 2 times negative 1 minus 7. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 1 minus 7. Y equals negative 6. Did I mess up there? Yep. What is negative? Wow, it's really late. What's negative 2 times negative 1? Hopefully you're able to say positive 2. And 2 minus 7 is negative 5, not negative 6. Negative 5. 0. Oops, wrong color. Y equals negative 2 times 0 minus 7. Y equals 0 minus 7. Y equals negative 7. Okay. And hopefully, right, you can look at this and you can see what's the pattern. And similarly to the redwood tree problem, similarly to the big C problem, okay, you see that there's a pattern, right? How much is it? I mean, it's not really growing, but how much is it changing by? How much is it growing by? And so here, you can see that each time you go, it's a minus 2, minus 2, minus 2, minus 2. So you can see that there's a rule here. And I mean, the rule is y equals negative 2x, but you can see that each time it's going down by negative 2. It starts at negative 7, and starting is when x is 0, right? So, I mean, I'm going to keep going as if I didn't say that, but maybe you pick that up. So let's go ahead and plug in 1. Y equals negative 2 times 1 minus 7. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, so y equals negative 2 minus 7. Y equals negative 2 minus 7 is negative 9. Okay, so here's negative 9. The last one. Let's keep going with that pattern. I'll plug in 2. Y equals, oh, 2, negative 2 times 2 minus 7. Y equals negative 4 minus 7. Y equals negative 11. And so hopefully you're able to see, I'm going to erase this because it's just in the way. Right? You're able to see that there's a pattern. When we move over 1, it's going to be minus 2. Alright? So similarly, like I said, to the redwood tree problem, even though that one was growing, right? It was getting bigger, the tree was getting bigger. This one you can see that the pattern is decreasing by 2. Okay. So now, how do I graph this? So to graph this, I'll go ahead and take each point and plug it in. Now here, I want you to notice that there are some things that are not labeled. In the directions, it says make sure that your graph looks nice and label everything that needs to be labeled. So right now I'm going to tell you the things I want you to label. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look down here. So the things I want you to label are your x and y axis. Okay, and they need to be scaled with numbers in equal intervals. So first of all, you need to know what your x and y axis is. Now, can you guys remember 손들어, right? That story I told you guys about going to Vegas and my parents would say 손들어, right? And so what does 손들어 represent? 손들어 represents your hands go up, right? And that's going to represent your y axis. So I want you to go ahead and label your x and y axis. Here's our y, here's our x. Okay, so we need to make sure we label our x and y axis, check. And we need to scale with numbers. So what scaling means is we're going to take our graph and see how there's no numbers marked right here. Like, we don't know what each line represents. So our job is to scale it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll make each line worth 1. Now, notice that I'm going to draw a number on the dotted line. It is not in between, okay? It's literally this line right here is going to be 1. This next line right here is going to be 2. This next line right here is going to be 3. And so when it says to scale number with numbers in equal intervals, that means that when I graph this, it can't jump from 2, 5, 12. Like, it can't be random numbers, okay? If you start each line as 1, then it has to go 1, 2, 3. If you go 2, 4, 6, 8, you can do that, right? It needs to be scaled, right, in equal intervals. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so I need to scale the negative side, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. Okay. And then going up is positive, so we'll add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10, -11. So what I did first was I labeled my graph with my x and y axis right here. X and y axis. I scaled my x and y coordinates. So this first one's done.
A choir is a musical ensemble of singers.
Thank you, Alexa. I don't know why you're talking to me. So the next thing we need to do is we need to, well, that one we won't get to quite yet. So when we get to it, we need to draw arrows on the graph that shows that it's going to grow infinitely. So I'll explain that once we graph. So now that we have our axis scaled, we're going to go ahead and plot our points. So I'm going to start here. My x value is -4, and my y value, right, here I'll use a different color. My x value is -4, and my y value is going to be +1. So this first point is going to go right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my pen, so and plot my first point. Next one, x value is -3, y value is -1. So -3, -1, the point goes right there. Next point, -2, x value is -2, y value is -3, -3. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my point right there. Okay. And we'll keep going. -1, so -1, -5. So I'm going to plot my point right there. Next point is 0, -7, 0, -7, 1, -9, 1, -9, 2, -11, 2, -11. Okay. So I now have all my points for that line. What I can do is I can draw a line. Now I've taught you guys this already, but go ahead and take your pencil or your finger, right? And start your point, and I'm going to start it right here. You won't see me plot the point, but now you will. So what I did was I just held it. If I hold it down, it becomes a straight line. I'm trying to do not a line that's not straight, but if I hold it, it becomes straight. I'll do that one more time. I'm going to draw a line that's not that straight, but if I hold it, it becomes straight. So what I'm going to do is I could put that down there. Now we'll click on the scissors button on the top. You can see that I'm toggling between pencil, eraser, scissors. If I tap the line once, if I held it down, right, if I hold down the line, it's going to become a straight line. And now there's these two squares that I can move. So I'm going to make sure that one of them's on the corner. And then now I could extend it. And what I need to do is make sure that it goes through each point, right? It wouldn't make sense for me to take my line and do this and say, oh, look, I drew my line. It doesn't go through with the points. So I'm going to make sure it goes through all of the points. Right? And extend it. So that's what it means here. Arrows on the graph to show, and lines extended to the edge of the graph. So what I did so far is I extended it to the edge of the graph. What I need to do is draw arrows, because really this line doesn't stop here, right? If I kept adding more points, like if I said 3, it'd be -13, 4, -15, right? So this line doesn't really stop. So the arrows are important to indicate, to show that the lines extend infinitely, okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is the y-axis. So the y-axis, if I can tell you in a short way, think of, oh, sorry, not y-axis, y-intercept. I want you to think of the word intercept. Now, not everyone here likes sports, but in football, interceptions happen when somebody crosses, right, and would steal the ball, right? So cross the path of the ball. I want you to think of the y-intercept to be crossing the y-axis. So the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. Now, this is where I make it a huge point, right? I tell you that long story about me going to Vegas and tell you the whole entire Sonduro thing, right? And I make a huge point about that because from now on, you're really going to need to know what the y-intercept is, and so that is going to be where does the, I mean, yeah, Sonduro, right? It shows you the y-axis. Where does the line cross the y-axis? So that's going to be called our y-intercept. So we'll go ahead and take a look, right? I wish I could just zoom in on this right side, but it zooms in weirdly. So I'm looking at the y-axis. Where does the line, right, cross the y-axis? So the line crosses the y-axis right here. So that point right there is called our y-intercept. So let's go ahead and label that. Okay, I'm going to label that. So 0, -7. Okay, and that right there is our y-intercept. So I'm going to label it y-intercept. Okay, we're going to be referring to this a lot. And even here, what are the coordinates of the xy of the y-intercept? Where the graph crosses the y-axis. The point is at 0, right? X is 0. Y-axis, y is -7. 0, -7. Okay? So that's the y-intercept. So check mark here, check mark there, check mark here. Equation of the rule written next to the graph. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the graph. The equation of our rule is right here. So what am I going to write next to my graph, right? I'm going to write y equals -2x minus 7. And so this graph has, this whole entire thing has a x and y axis. It's scaled. Okay, I drew my arrows and I extended it all the way to the edge. I wrote my y-intercept and I wrote my equation. On your test, I'm going to be asking you, technically, for all of these things. So make sure you know the checklist for a complete graph is right here. Okay. All right. So that's our first graph. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second graph. So B. This one's a little bit trickier. It's called a parabola. Okay, so our first graph was a line. The second one's going to be called a parabola. What I need to do is I need to use my rule, y equals x squared plus 2. So I'm going to take up my x value, plug it in. So let's start with yellow again. Right. And I'm not going to highlight these all. I'm just going to put -3. Oh, I don't want to use. At this point, I'm just going to put -3 and circle it. Okay. So y equals -3 squared plus 2. Y equals -3 times -3 is 9 plus 2. Y equals 11. So 11. Let's go ahead and solve for -2 now. Y equals -2 squared plus 2. Remember, -2 squared is the same thing as -2 times -2, right? And -2, negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. So y equals 4 plus 2. Y equals 6. Oops, -1. Let's go ahead and put -1. Y equals -1 squared plus 2. Y equals -1 times -1 is 1 plus 2. Y equals 3. Let's go ahead and do 0. Y equals 0 squared plus 2. Y equals 0 plus 2. Because 0 times 0 is 0. Y equals 2. 1. Y equals, and I'm just now doing this. Y equals 1 squared plus 2. Y equals 1 squared is 1 times 1, which is 1 plus 2. Y equals 3. And you're going to see that this and this are the same. Y equals, oh, let's go 2. Y equals 2 squared plus 2. Y equals, we already did that, 2 squared is the same thing as negative 2 times negative 2. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 2. Y equals 6. And 3. Y equals 3 squared plus 2. Y equals 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2. Y equals 11. Alright. So let's go ahead and graph these right here. I'm going to use purple for this one. No. Let's do a completely different color than pink. Let's go green. Or, yeah, green. So my x value is going to be negative 3. Y value is going to be 11. Negative 3. Right, 11. So that's going to go all the way up here. Negative 2, 6. So negative 2 will go up to 6. Negative 1, 3. Negative 1, 3. Zero, 2. That's a little bit easier to find. 0, 2. Remember, that's going to be our, what's that word called when we have a part of the line that crosses the y-axis, right? The y-intercept. Because that's the part where it crosses the y-axis. All right, and then let's keep going. 1, 3. 1, 3. 2, 6. Right here, 2, 6. 2, 6. You're going to notice that it kind of looks like a U, 3, 11. Right? Kind of has a U shape. So I'm going to draw my line. It's not a V, it is a U, so I want it to be kind of curved as it comes down the bottom. Alright. So now that I have my parabola, it's not this one, I can't draw a straight line, like I can't hold it. It won't work. But here, I'll make sure I do all the things I need to do. I have my x and y axis labeled and it's already scaled because I already did that before. I need to draw arrows on the end and draw it so that extends. So let's just draw our arrows. We need our y-intercept labeled. So let's go ahead and label this our y-intercept. And it's at 0, 2. Check. And then the equation, y equals x squared plus 2. Okie dokie. I am moving through this pretty quickly, but so it goes. What are the coordinates of the y-intercept? The y-intercept was right here. Our y-intercept is always going to be when x is 0. What's our y? 2. Okay? Alright. Let's go ahead and do this one. Right here, y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. Unless I skip this one. What was the gnarly one? This last one. Mr. Takaya tried. So, if you're with my math 8, I'm going to have you skip B. So here we go. Mr. Takaya. Sorry, let me just check. Mr. Takaya tried to make a table for our line, and he thinks he has the right values. But he has asked his wonderful students and Mr. Galindo's students and my students to check his work. Here's what he has so far. Y equals negative 3x minus 8. Our job is to graph the points and determine where the mistake is. Please show and explain to Mr. Takaya what mistake he probably made with his math. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take every point and we're going to plot it. So let's just do that. Oh, before we do that, what do we need to do? What are we missing? And we'll give you a couple hints. Right? We need to label, right, our x and y axis. Please don't ever forget your y axis. You need to know that. And then we need to scale this. So let's go ahead and scale it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10, -11. Alright, let's plot these points. -1, -5, -1 on the x, -5 on the y. It's right there. -3, 1, -3, 1. 1, -11. 1. Let's go down to -11. 0, -8. 0, -8. That's our y-intercept. -2, 2, -2, 2. And -4, 4. -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you can tell right away. Most of these points fit into a line, but one of them isn't. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to draw my line with most of the points, right? You're going to notice that one of the points don't fit. Which one is it, right? We'll extend that line all the way. Put my arrows. I'm also going to label it y equals -3x plus minus 8. Right, I labeled it. Now, I also need to label my y-axis on y-intercept. 0, -8 is y-intercept. Okay. Now, what point doesn't look right? Right? What point didn't fit? 2, -2, 2, right? This one right here. So this one, -2, 2, is not right. How do we know? How do we know? Right? It doesn't fit in the line. It's not in the line. And so let's go ahead and see what he did. Let's go ahead and plug that in. Y equals -3 times -2 minus 8. Y equals -6 minus 8, and y should equal negative. Oh no, sorry, not -6. Positive 6 minus 8 should be -2. Oh, he put -2, 2. He probably just forgot the negative. He probably just forgot the negative sign. That's what the mistake was. So it should be -2, -2. Okay. So these are the notes. This one's just a mistake, and you will make mistakes. That's how you learn. This is a mistake that Mr. Takai made, and we could see that it doesn't fit in the graph. Okay, make sure you draw your arrows, label your y-intercept, scale, and write your x and y axis. Okay. Your checklist is here. Okay. You need to be able to graph lines. this is more of the focus, okay? Making sure that you plug in the values into your equation, plot your points, extend your line, draw your arrows, label your y-intercept, label your equation, scale, make sure you label your x and y axis. All right. Good luck. Let me know if you need more help.